You are all here for the wrong reasons, and the right things will happen anyway. Rejoice and be glad the work that each of us do is just one moving part in a giant cycle of art making to which there is no beginning and no end.
The last large wild beasts are being hunted, poisoned, asphyxiated in one way or another. And the transmission of their wildness is dying, taming. A desert is rising with this falling pulse. It is our duty as poets and others who have not lost our jagged edges, creative edges, to fill the gap and resist the urge to subdue our spirits and lose ourselves in the hypnotic beep of machines, of war, in the banal need for power and things. With our poems and creative core, we must return this world to seismic levels of wildness.
The aim of our collaboration is the realization of two basic ideas. One, real change requires real thinking. Two, the spaces we fight for today must be shared spaces. The sooner we admit we are not alone, the freer we are to construct new chords of thought without fear. Thank you, CA.
Because feminism, as our work inhabits it, is asking us to recreate its space in the world. It's asking us to look at one another and to do something different and differently.
What we're learning from water. Because you smell those old roses burning, you go running for the water can. And you know, that's the kind of fire I'm gonna fan.
Eyelids closing.
Welcome home.
Kicked the dusted earth.
See here? Someday maybe.
Thick black boot, tongue.
The desert says.
Rippled and hanging when?
The snow falls, picks.
Would the Sestruga return?
Up dusts are off.
Those giant white whales, made of cold crystal and blowhole.
Life's too short, she says. Do you?
Well, still the malachite eddies, prisms, slicked ore.
Leave it alone because.
Their lateritic love that's rusted red
That's the only way, she says, to extend.
Fraudulent telescope with an eye inside.
It, or because that's the only.
Asking, do you have room for me? Can I join you?
Way, she says, of getting.
High rises in the still wild west.
It done.
Toxic bright dyes flung into rivers that shimmy into other rivers.
She's getting human around her atoms.
And then give it all up. Spread eagle into the ocean.
Or maybe that's back.
A love that's background checked.
Words, maybe that's why she.
Never quixotic, a laterigrade.
The world's convert, the devil's.
Movement from surveillance.
Accomplice, keeps.
Camera to surveillance camera.
The distance, turning towards the haphazard.
Brother, 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 brother. A love.
Lilacs crashing on immaculate.
That's always been done, what it's been told.
Juniper and a little short.
Breeding constantly where we cannot.
Of dying as if. Roadkill afterbirth riddle.
Untitled, Skull, 1981. Acrylic, oil, paint stick, spray paint, and paper collage on wood.
Question. The desert doesn't call herself old. She just calls herself dead?
Answer. Rows and rows, teeth packed into skull, drawn in thick oil stick. Debris of a city, stuffed into bare mouth. The auger and bones. Bones built from acrylic, an improvised brushstroke. A clavicle in all its views, depicting the premonition of Moon King. The famous throne, the thorn crown, the art of a discarded apartment door.
Question. And what a surprise to find out, after all these years, rib cages that used to be swimming pools?
Answer. Wants to live, extends their entire body into the gesture, arrows between the ribs.
Question. Getting this done versus what she wanted to do?
Answer, as in, we always forget this can happen.
Question. A wordless argument would be a relief? To be seen for love, to be adored for fame, to be wanted?
Answer, they, the ruffians, all kings with thorn crowns or halos or arms outstretched into the golden wood of tall night, crowded skeletal systems, crowned in oil stick and whiteout.
Question. Like an autopsy? Or a ballerina fantasy? Or a prayer without any saints?
Answer, wants that frenetic slum elegance.
Question. Unpeopled. As it rips away from the horizon, the childless fiction. Forgiving himself for what he didn't do?
He, answer, aquí está, social abrasion in the form of paint layers, hue drip, oil, rough violets.
Question. Wolf moon, carcass cannibal, sun-bleached birthday hat, tricycles like gravestones. And the bloodless yellow heart of heaven?
Answer, here, we are preserving the seeds of some authentic, part wolf, part lobo, part Charlie Parker, and then the art stops, breathing, as in overdose.
Question. He forgets his shape. He seduces an orange. He wipes the Woody Guthrie lyrics from his mouth. He drags his belly across the steaming sand all day. He doesn't answer prayers, but he never turns them down?
Answer, in other words, an untethered calabash, as in some white men are black men too.
Question. Or maybe that's backwards. Or maybe that's the leaves of the world turning towards the light until all that's left is human?
Answer, we, as an anatomical study of the astronomy of altered states. Satellite lost, meteor found.
Question. The desert stands up, says her goodbyes to the lion, to horses thin as girls, and the girls who ride them thin as wishes that will not come true? Reality. Men pouring to the floor of it. Now do it fast. Heroin, interrupted or split second, error, world, space, 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 space. And like a velvet Iliad, all that belongs remains between. To be human is merely
Bites back, which is to say expendable, poverty of and what happens underneath, switchblade, cement, second nature. Proust says, what's mistresses, persistence, surefire radiant ignition, or how about
the beginning of metaphor in the yellow desert. This is a story about apocalypse.
garishly exposed, cut open for the cameras, performing the best and worst parts of ourselves.
But it is also a story about boldness, resolution, independence, and horn blowing. Like Achilles testing his armor or gunning it around the sun.
Casting its best light on just anyone.
Singe out soon enough, and the love-struck error.
We, who live on only to be wanted back badly enough.
Saw at the edge of all this country is... I mean, hold on to this love story with bare hands, even if it burns. I mean, if flawed wrong choices...
Begging for a predator.
Make the romance...
Which should curl in upon itself and loop around like smoke.
Then consequences...
Like transparent butterfly or an imaginary equator.
Make the conquest. For example, what holds us together if it isn't exactly fake plants, flowers made from soda bottles, a doll serenely composed with splash-zone epoxy, the subtle and incomplete happy ending that is our American West.
So brutal and so alive, it seems to comprehend us back.
Our manifest destiny, as desperately fragile as we are resilient.
Yes, yes, it was another time. We were pioneers telling the most remarkable lies. The desert flesh against us, living, lying, deciding. Because meadow, rock-pocked valley subway, taking a drag with handsome whore lips, beneath jetsam dusk, fist, full of dark matter and plum blossom in ecstatic brimshine, fluorescent panic, while Bowie bedlam whispers.
But still, come on, when it rains, Bowie, why not? Her body obeys.
Its own law. It's a god-awful small affair. We snapped the electricity line, cupped sand, poured russet amber quartz pixels from rough hands, dry fingers, into the generator, the desert as ocean, the ocean as desert.
In the paradise of our memory, the cowboys sang themselves into houses, and feathered by bird, beaten against the wind, inside the too-soon hem of locomotives, a rusty wedding dress, and a Chinese buffet. She is young in all the right places. She says love.
The earth as medium, while we pulled the loose net of language over our long legs. The universe as scantily clad in tourist season.
Is death, is fear, she says. She doesn't know, she says. That's the difference between you and me, actually.
Then spread them, gash of the American West, with throngs emerging to see life not crowded upon itself, binoculars around sweaty necks, solitude as spectacle.
The desert hardens her resolve, shows mercy, eats fallen fruit, betrays widows, orphans, and the truth.
Snow confettis, and by 9 a.m. Red Rock and Arch are exposed. Mule deer leave dream prints, and you on your hands and knees in the desert, the white alkali crust of what used to be. A shortwave radio strapped to your chest switches on, then off, and at first, nothing, then the night.
This is another thing we don't spend a lot of time worrying about, actually. Mistaking the desert for this specific animal with a past, it hurts and she hurts. Sometimes she lets the whiskey tell the tale. Sometimes she wakes up to a glass of milk, holds out her hand, bends her fingers, says, hello, what happened here?
Who knows? There is a price.
Get rich quick, on its way to immaterial panoramic.
Click on me, and I'll click on you.
Windows of a ghost town resort, rolled back desert in the sightless off-season sunset which in.
This is the cul-de-sac from which you run into the woods in order to escape.
Time devours itself, steps sideways into a world where survival
doesn't mean desperate. They put deadbolts on all the beehives. I stowed the keys inside my blood year. This is where the language shifts itself onto a third leg. This is terrain as dark asylum.
Of the fittest makes cactus dialogue with gasoline receipts and in the final flush of gold.
This rock, star, is microprojectors inside a pair of earrings, is peppermint starlight, bedazzled, singing along.
Sequins and tree shadow desperados, the dream bends, then learns again to stand.
Slow dive, shake, clap, shimmy, so fuck me for saying yes.
Not precarious, so much as superimposed.
A way of being wrong, which is also sometimes necessarily right. This morning, while reading Abby in the garden, the neighbor's fence rattles. Little fingers poking through its tall bamboo. Little voices, tiny voices, and a head popping over. The young boy it belongs to feels faster a heartbeat when our eyes meet one. Of his hands, clutches a pink current. Nimbly, he throws a leg over, then waits for his brother. I'd seen them before, always running loose in the alley, hiding in the shapes of trees, selling home. Made chocolates, wrapped in notebook paper and waging war with sticks, watching as the second one slides his belly down, then drops.
Impersonator apocalypse. From under the driver's seat, the desert fumbles around, trying to steady herself. Once she had sex in it and ideas. Now, in the paraphrased haze of epic, right there next to the message about Jesus, the moon is in her mouth. She thinks she's coming to understand something. At the bottom of the mountain, looking down, spring flaunts her belly button, drags herself out of punctured canyons or disemboweled stars, a pet on a life raft, the flowers. She comes to the arroyo and finds it full of shadow animals and second-hand scorpions squeezed out of the arsonist sky. It looks as if she's waving goodbye because of what's still living inside.
Where we're writing from, the environment of a relationship.
Despite my identification with feminism and women's poetry, I've never had a female mentor.
Here, not only through the collaborative process of creating eco-poetic outlaw sonnets about apocalypse and the desert, about the Wild West, pop culture, and the state of the environment, about David Bowie, the ecology of the female and the environment of a relationship, but also throughout the process of actually being in an MFA that is unlike any other. I have returned to doing so many of the things that remind me how alive I am, that both tether me and push me from the precipice of the cliff. I still find deep satisfaction in creating with my hands and in laboring with my body, in sweating and existing very much of, from, and in the earth.
Building a brand new, innovative, holistic master's program in creative writing takes up pretty much all of the creative energy I have, which is to say, I don't write much anymore. In fact, this collaboration with Laura is a kind of permission to do what I love, what I don't have time for anymore, and what I'm scared to consider in this moment of extremity. What we share is a life of poetry and, poetry but, poetry or.
In which we have been learning, it's all collaboration.
In the words of our recent distinguished visiting writer and most beloved poet activist C.A. Conrad, everything around us has a creative viability with the potential to spark new modes of thought and imaginative output.
The most vital ingredient to making sustainable, humane changes in our world is creativity. This we can enact on a daily basis.
We are artists, and we are useful. Woo!
It's true to say the poem is there. It's right there. It's always there. And actually, it's waiting for us. It's waiting. It's like the poet Alice Notley says, poetry is so common, hardly anyone can find it. I didn't say it.
What you carried with you inside the door this morning was the ability to apprehend beauty and change or be changed, like the monk who accidentally discovered champagne. We're delighted to share with you 3 opportunities in the next few weeks in which you can find your creative viability or find a new creative viability. These include Not Your Ordinary Art event, a journaling workshop, and the Plenum Capstone Project. After the closing remarks, we'll be at the exits and we'll have some flyers with more information. So to be continued, and thank you.
Come play in the dirt with us.